don't trust, verify. So even this talk, everything I've said, don't trust me. You have to experience it yourself. And you have to learn yourself. And this is going to be so critical as we enter this time in the next 5 years to 10 years, because the way that images are created, deep fakes, videos, you will literally not know what is real and what is fake. It'll be almost impossible to tell. It will feel like you're in a simulation because everything will look manufactured, everything will look produced. And it's very important that you shift your mindset, or you attempt to shift your mindset, to verifying the things that you feel you need through your experience, through your intuition. Because all these devices in your bags, in your pockets, they're offloading from that image of the neuron I sent you. And because all these things are on your phone now, you're not building those connections in your brain anymore.
To anyone I've offended, I just want to say I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship. Did you think I was also going to be a chill, normal dude?
Now watch this drive.
Technology that can make us our better selves.
President-elect Trump takes office in January. It's called the Department of Government Efficiency. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will head it up.
An abuse that's being uncovered by Dayz and the people at Dayz. These are young, often young, but super brilliant people, incredible computer scientists and other things. And
we know that there are dollars that are wasted, that have gone into the pockets of fat cats around the globe without the humanitarian aid being delivered. We have seen such complacency with oversight and direction. Sometimes it takes a sledgehammer, and that's exactly what Elon Musk is doing.
What if this entire Doge thing is a complete scam? A ruse, another derailing and distractive creation of propaganda politics, another fraud pretending to stamp out fraud, just another big con for Americans to lap up like obedient little pets. What if it is all rooted in false promises and pretense, ulterior motives, and just straight up blatant misrepresentations of reality? Are we really naive enough to think that these savings are going to translate to tangibles at the level of everyday people? Have we seen any real material change for the better? Or are we all just supposed to have confidence in that all things will work out with enough time and patience? Is this Trust the Plan 2.0? There is clearly a storm about, but I'm not quite sure this is rain. And it isn't like we haven't been used as urinals for industrial waste before. Seriously, are we being scammed? Like the Build the Wall scenario, like the Q PSYOP, or maybe like Operation Warp Speed. That worked out well.
We want to go quickly, but we want to make sure it's safe and it's effective. I think that is doable.
From magical disappearing Epstein binders, bearded ladies and men in mascara, made-for-TV movies about immigrant pogroms, false promises of campy Fort Knox super chat live streams starring iShow Speed and a Fed named Cash, a naked orange emperor playing a game of Sorry with an international economy, a physicist pretending to be an economist, a philosopher, and a game show host all at the same time, with mere goals of moving to Mars and chipping brains of lowly humans because computers super smart. Lies, damn lies, and statistics from charlatans who have no business leading a country of helpless and confused citizens in desperate need of direction and Jesus. Maybe none of this has to do with citizens or the country. Are we living in a bad Netflix series? So much of this seems like a cruel joke. It's so bizarre and performative. Even the characters look like they were pulled right from central casting. Are we trapped in some type of state-funded Truman Show dark comedy? Was Idiocracy a documentary? And now Elon Musk has apparently just decided to put the toy down for a while and go play with his other businesses. Aside from rabid liberal antics, the other side of the nutty coin is conservatives thinking all of this is totally normal and some actual demonstration of winning. For all I know, or anyone else for that matter, Trump's Golden Age campaign and Doge could be a totally mediated theater piece designed to preoccupy the public masses with shiny things and stuff to get mad about, whilst major industrial and institutional transformation is busy at work reframing and reshaping the future of the once free world in ways that have very little to do with the facade of government efficiency. Possibly we're being poked and nudged into a completely new way of life that is only seeing its earliest stages of development through actors and propagandists like Musk and Trump. An old idea posing as a new one, a new axial age, transforming what it means to exist, what it means to be a citizen, and what it means to be human.
In the last 10 years, we've advanced computation and computation scale by nearly 1 million times. Moore's law would have been 100 times. And yet we were able to scale computation by extraordinary levels, leading to some incredible breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. We have not only reinvented computing, we have now reinvented what computers can do. And as a result of that, every single industry is affected. This is now going to be the single largest technology breakthrough that the world's ever known.
I suspect what is going on right now is much bigger and much deeper than fixing the economy, rooting out fraud and waste via efficiency, and reestablishing a nationalist state power America has seemed to lose sight of. At this point, regardless of what the experts tell you, no one truly knows what the actual hell is going on with our government, nor international geopolitical affairs in general. We are only allowed to see and hear what the screens, platforms, and algorithms have been designed to allow. Essentially, keeping the public trapped within the false left-right two-party system, believing in politics as a trustworthy solution to social problems, or dependence on their machines and mouthpieces for knowledge and understanding, and overall, a continuous state of ignorance and learned helplessness. A perfectly ripe populace fit for posthuman technological integration, all becomes computation. From a state of emergency and exception to a state of efficiency. A new golden age where governance, bureaucracy, democracy so-called, education, labor, and civics all become extensions of a new technology. Musk calls it the singularity.
And historically, humans don't do well living side by side with other things that are human-like. One or the other survives and the other goes away. We don't do well in cooperation. 500 years ago, when humans entered the New World, it was not a good outcome for the natives. And I don't expect as we enter this newer world, this brave new world, that it will be pleasant for the losers. And the winners may be some transhuman thing. But the losers, or the typical inhabitants of the last 500 years, won't be treated well, because that's not been the history of man. They didn't live in cooperation.
We are now living in a mediated state of total control and confinement. The thoughts, hearts, and minds are incentivized, nudged, and controlled by way of algorithmic capture, and the public commons is confined to centralized social media network platforms and legacy news media. we are all subsumed by the device paradigm. As the physical world, our bodies, and our untrustworthy material senses are moved to the background, nearly out of sight and out of mind, the virtual world, a new ontology with algorithms and entertainment, symbols and imagery, memetics and paid agents and influencers, take up the foreground. Our new reality is being formed. We now move from reliance on experts to codependence on machine learning for guidance, as we pace blindly in a dark virtual abyss that lacks physical parts to grasp. One day in the near future, civilization will realize introducing algorithms and handheld social media devices to routine life was a grave and fatal decision that should have been snuffed out the moment it met corporate meeting tables. As anyone with working eyes can see, we as a species are far worse off for it. And now, we all decided to join them in the exploitation for personal gain. Everyone plays into the farce, fencing for views and shekels, tripping over each other's feet in this awkward dance, a blithe unconcern, as if we are not being destroyed from the inside out. Sometimes it appears as if Smith was correct about the free market human interface of ego, personal interest, and the base greed of the thinking animal. I would argue a fallen nature that has merely been exploited by systems of greed and exponential consumption, all under the false pretense that it is a normative system of progress and prosperity that aligns with our true mode of being. But then again, hey, I could be wrong about this all. Though history, political track records, technological evolution, and its consequential human-scale devolution seems to present a pretty clear set of evidence to suggest otherwise. Either way, we are all experiencing a revolution unlike any other. An axial shift, a new way of being and doing is upon us. And it is as if we have no control over it. As we take this journey alone together, let us assess what is happening around us, lest we become mere spectators and cockeyed participants. Let us begin.
This is a crisis in America right now, a crisis in America. So everybody out there saying, oh my God, don't shut down this program, don't shut down the Department of Education. Let them continue to not do their job, continue to kick the can down the road, continue to let children not get educated, continue to slide down the ladder. Don't you let it happen. That's the real story, and we need to be raising hell about it until something is done.
School, and I am a grateful product of America's public school system. But today, that system is broken.
What if I told you the education system is in fact not broken at all, and is functioning precisely as it was intended? What if it was never meant to authentically teach and develop intelligence, but systematically socialize and occupy mind, time, and space for pseudo-democratic, economic, and industrial stability? What if education was designed as a compulsory population management system with the purpose of fashioning the perfect managerial class, a staple American stock of compliant and codependent citizens? If this were true, has it not fulfilled its purposes? So if it isn't in fact broken, why does it need reform? Aside from public outcry and complaints, of course, possibly its purposes have changed. And this new purpose must be dressed in an appeal to public interest, an investment in the proper learning of the plebeian citizenry. Just another piece of the Great Reset puzzle? A fourth industrial expression of social reform? Indeed, now that we have reached a period in history that seeks to reset and reform all spheres of civilization, industry, and institution, education, aside from the family, stands as the institution of all institutions in need of reform. It is the bedrock of human and social knowing and understanding. It can, and of course with zealous support of the blind masses, now be leveraged as an institution of technological development, better automation, a catalyst and vehicle for a post-human Web3 ecosystem, and of course, Musk's and tortured futurists alike, pursuit of the singularity. A new revolution in education or technology. At the expense of personhood, organic human culture, the family, and authentic learning. Interestingly, all of this sounds rather familiar, almost as if this has been done before, albeit of a lesser technological might. America has many a times traversed this windy road of corporate government appeals to progress and promises of abundance for all. Have our memories failed us? Have we not adopted and embraced shiny machine things that, by their very design, undermine and deteriorate our natural abilities to remember? To have a robust, natural working memory? Or have we suddenly and primarily taken up lives that live in the short term, bombarded by shorts, memes, acronym, and blips, and sometimes hours of mostly glib, if not meaningless, information? Though we remain mostly human, complicit, complacent, and profane, we maintain the incremental crawl from man to post-human. So if the education system is in fact not broken and is working just as it was intended, what do I mean by this? Let us go back to the beginning of modern education for some needed historical context. If we are to understand the machinations of Musk and contemporary education reformers, we must thoroughly understand the reformers and machinations of the past, lest the past repeats itself. But as Scripture tells us, there is nothing new under the sun. Let's go back in time to 1779, the post-revolutionary era in America. To understand America in its youth is to understand the motley and quirky ways of a rebellious and callous mixed-breed feral child, a fascinating and challenging tale of warfare, pillage, survival, and becoming. Children are impressionable, vulnerable, in need of guidance and direction. They can be easily harmed by too much freedom and unabated liberty. The same can be said for dominion. Children need education. They need to be taught how to be what is right, wrong, and what is good. Education in all of its forms is the beginning of knowing, the very first steps taken towards understanding, and America at the time was embarking on a completely new conception of it. The American state of education in the 18th century can be defined by rural and localized free association, grassroots, community-based systems of voluntary pedagogy, decentralized and private instruction usually based in the home or shared familial networks, regular people getting together privately to teach meaning, values, arithmetic, language arts, and systems of knowledge and understanding, and of course, faith. Key components of this voluntary education system are localism, autonomy, and systems of parochial tradition. Free and dynamic, untouched by state intervention nor corporate interest. Today we can see similar systems in the form of homeschooling and community and family-based microschools, but it is clear state and federal views of this type of education are typically negative, viewed as unprofessional or unqualified, and even as a threat to national stability and the so-called proper way of educating children. That is, of course, when they step outside of the bounds of government regulations and standards. This sentiment has a history, and it took political shape in 1779, beginning with Thomas Jefferson. He believed education was essential for sustaining democracy and upholding its values. Quote, the most effectual means of preventing government degeneracy would be to illuminate, as far as practicable, the minds of the people at large. In 1779, he proposed free elementary education for all citizens in his Bill for the More General Diffusion of Knowledge, a pioneering vision for state involvement in education. Jefferson's Virginia Bill birthed the ideological and philosophical foundations for a new American education system. The bill had three components: basic education for all children, regardless of wealth or birth. This fulfilled the democratic core. But of course, this excluded many based on race. Second, portraying the core industrial elitist and economic motives. Advanced studies were offered, but only for a select few. And lastly, scholarships to attend College of William and Mary were provided for those exhibiting some degree of extraordinary and superior levels of skill or talent. The centralization of education represented a significant departure from the decentralized approach that had characterized American education in the past. While centralization brought with it benefits such as increased standardization and accountability, it also raised concerns about the loss of local control and autonomy. Interestingly, the bill was never enacted in Virginia, but it set the tone for a new perspective on the idea of universal education systems. From Jefferson's bill forward, and as far as the developing nation-state leadership was concerned, education had a new mission, a new set of defining principles, structures, and goals. Horace Mann, the first Secretary of Education in Massachusetts, is historically revered as the key reformer of modern education in America. The centralizing force or standardization of American rural education was the formation of what is called the Common School movement. Mann promoted the ideas of Jefferson via his concept of the Common School, also known as normal schools, free, non-sectarian and secularist institutions funded by taxes and open to children of all classes and makeup. The purpose of these schools were to standardize pedagogy and create universal norms for education, curriculum, and teaching style. The first of its kind, the standard teacher accreditation system. This is also known as professionalization, a way to establish an authority that disqualifies all non-professional or approved forms of a thing. For instance, non-accredited teachers are not considered worthy of teaching. Normal schools were the first step in professionalization and standardization of modern education. A type of teacher factory was created, under the guise of fixing the problem of incompetence, disorganization, unqualified teachers, and underdeveloped teaching ability in the traditional programs of the time. Mann founded the first public normal school in Lexington, Massachusetts in 1839, the prototype to education licensing and teacher accreditation.
Together. You've been away from the situation a long time, Horace. Frankly, things are worse.
Especially in Massachusetts. The schools here and throughout the United States have poor public support. Poor pupils, untrained teachers, poor buildings, and poor textbooks.
Aren't your educators making a mountain out of a molehill? It seems that most of us have managed to get an education.
You came from a wealthy family, Mr. Grace. You had a dozen schools to choose from.
You reformers. I say if the common people want schools, let them build them.
Mr. Grace, although I'm an outsider in this group, I've always tried to watch the educational system with a pretty close eye. It seems to me that an educated majority points to a democratic nation.
But why antagonize the people who count in this state? Look at this board of education you've just established. It costs us a lot of weak votes.
I've always considered schools, the most common schools, as the seedbeds of democracy. If we don't cultivate them, we'll raise a dwarfed and stunted crop.
Prussia, 1843. Horace Mann visited Prussia and was impressed by the factory-like organization, mechanisms, and meticulous educational design. Mann praised Prussia's thoroughness and efficiency, arguing that its standardization of school form and centralized model could unify America's fragmented schools and align American people of all classes with state industrial and economic interests. a universal means to build character and social cohesion. Developed between the 18th and 19th centuries, Prussia's education system, better known as the Prussian model, emphasized, amongst others, 4 key features. These exact features man would become fascinated and infatuated with, and immediately head back to America to formulate his own version of them. Firstly is compulsory attendance, mandatory education, or renamed as schooling, for children 5 to 14 years of age. This meant schooling for all, by law. Next was a centralized administrative body. This provided state control and approval of teacher training and hiring, funding, and curriculum. This development made a standard and business enterprise of what students could and should learn, controlling exactly how it is to be taught and by whom. This state-enforced corporate practice is what led to standardization of knowledge in the form of textbooks, arbitrary curriculum, grading systems, and rote memorization with standardized testing, making education a state mandate and product, a monopoly on learning that shed a negative light on free communal education systems, all under the guise of new rights to education, equality, and democracy, a foreshadowing of things to come, like privatization versus localism. A major Prussian model feature was vocational tracking, an early education track system that would quantify skill level and organize student value based on achievement potential, a new binary system of utility that normalized competition, division, and hierarchy in education. This form of organization linked schooling outcomes with industrial economic success, not democratic achievement, treating ed tracks like markets and categorizing humans like farm goats, some fit for milk, others fit for meat. Administrators would channel what they called worker-type children of lower classes and intelligence to vocational training for industrial positions and manual labor, whilst upper-class children of learned stock, as Adam Smith put it in his work, Wealth of Nations, people of rank, would be funneled into knowledge-based managerial and classical education, a legacy example of the social Darwinistic working classes versus leisure class as a fundamental bone in the overall skeletal structure of market-based liberal democracy, the home of the so-called free and now educated. Here we can see from the inception of standardization in education and centralized structure that hierarchies and class division was baked into the foundations, a system designed around creating the proper work and industrial managerial stock to run market economies. But there was more than industrial and economic interests involved. The last feature was blatant social engineering programs. Schooling engendered nationalist culture, loyalty to the state, and focused on instilling a general state of discipline, conformity, and docility into the populations of all classes. Nearly 200 years later, has much changed? It's almost as if the same system is in fact not broken at all, but doing what it was designed to do. American market-based democratic government attempted solving problems of equality in a complex society, but by its diverse structure of pluralism and idealist goals of equality and assimilation, elements of control became a requirement to handle the scale of duties and activity, necessitated a new bureaucracy, and of most importance, the surveillance state. Both of which, in symbiosis, created a scalable future of mass technological development and the instrumentalism of society, regardless of its good intentions on paper. The compulsory education system was an early project. Prussia's mandate for universal schooling and strategies for nation building and industrial discipline inspired the United States. And indeed, similar laws and strategies were enacted. A new scientific administrative oversight of education matched perfectly with the progressive era materialist views towards humanity, machine, and industry. Progressive era politics and ideology, though historically defined by social reform and welfare, were steeped in anti-human practices like eugenic systems informed by bigotry and elitism, anti-immigrant and racist policy, and revolutionist industrial empire driven by dehumanization and greed. But one of its lesser assessed focuses was the mass education of its people, a new type of mass psychology and socialization. The land of the free was always a home of the socially engineered. Bertrand Russell addresses mass psychology in his work, The Impact of Science on Society, where he says, "Its importance has been enormously increased by the growth of modern methods of propaganda. Of these, the most influential is what is called education." By 1918, literally all states required school attendance until age 16. This was, of course, justified by arguments of equal opportunity, immigrant assimilation, and the war against child labor. The Progressive Era's attempt at security and equality for children. Just give us your children's minds, bodies, and time in exchange. Let us quote Russell again as it adds to the idea. "It may be hoped that in time anybody will be able to persuade anybody of anything if he can catch the patient young and is provided by the state with money and equipment. This subject will make great strides when it is taken up by scientists under a scientific dictatorship. The social psychologists of the future will have a number of classes of children on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. Various results will soon be arrived at. If not the goal all along, as an outcome, it is clear this degree of mass psychology has been reached."
Technology and science, altering behavior, extending our control over mind and body.
It's not just that he can do these things, which is enough to understand, but that he does do these things. Not that it's possible to gain control over intellectual functioning, but in fact that we have. And this person then, perhaps an entire society, will be seen as a victim of the success of biotechnology. That is to say that he no longer can exercise the choice to take the drug or put on the battery pack or whatever, but he's lost that choice simply because of the subtle and pervasive increase in the tendency to use it.
And what about the broken windows and the torn school books and the smashed school equipment? The teachers who teach here don't like this kind of situation. The students don't like to come here to go to school.
And most of all, the parents. They are the ones who get the worst deal. They pay taxes like the rest of us, and they are just as concerned about the kind of education that their kids get as the rest of us are. They know their kids are getting a bad education, but they feel trapped. Many of them can see no alternative but to continue sending their kids to schools like this.
As we've seen, the market works in education. When people pay for what they get, they value what they get. The market works in higher education.
The state of being uneducated, you don't know enough.
It can also work at the level of primary and secondary education.
Ignorant, right. Ignorant.
Market competition is the surest way to improve the quality and promote innovation in education as in every other field.
Who the hell are you anyway? Who am I?
This strike highlights the need to work closer with the community group.
In the last 3 weeks that we were out on strike, we got almost no more than we were offered at the very beginning of this strike. So we certainly weren't out here in the picket lines for money. But I would have liked to have seen greater monies given to the disadvantaged areas to effectuate more change in our schools and better programs and smaller class sizes.
Are most of the kids in favor of the picketing?
Yep.
How come?
I think they should get a better education too, and I think they should get some more money, cause they be working extra hours for us and all that stuff.
The 1970s marked a seismic shift in American economic and educational policy, as the nation pivoted from the post-war Keynesian consensus centered on government intervention and social welfare toward the ascendant doctrine of neoliberalism with its faith in market mechanisms, privatization, and deregulation. The era's economic turmoil, stagflation, oil shocks, and a crisis of confidence in government's ability to manage the economy created fertile ground for this new ideological transformation. At the heart of this shift was a calculated effort to redefine not just the economy, but the very institutions that shape public consciousness, most notably education. The catalyst for much of this change can be traced to the Powell Memorandum of 1971, written by future Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It warned of a broad attack on the American free enterprise system and called for a coordinated, long-term campaign to reshape public opinion, academia, and policy. Powell singled out higher education as a key battleground, urging business leaders to counter perceived leftist influence by funding think tanks, media, and campus initiatives that promoted free market ideas. This memo laid the intellectual and organizational groundwork for a sustained push to embed corporate values and market logic into every level of American life, including education. Interestingly, education since the postmodern movement has been defined by progressive, leftist, toxic ideals of communism and socialism. But what we find is after the 70s, a new type of culture was added in, an integration of postmodern ideals with neoliberal corporate perspectives. An amalgamation of leftist and rightist ideologies, one economic, one cultural. Teacher and union protests became a defining feature of the era, as educators frustrated by stagnant wages, overcrowded classrooms, and the erosion of professional autonomy took to the streets. The 1970 Minneapolis teacher strike exemplified this trend, with thousands of educators walking out to demand better pay and working conditions, despite the legal and political risks. Their actions not only won concessions, but also led to landmark labor legislation. These protests were part of a broader wave of labor activism that swept the nation, reflecting both the growing militancy of teachers and the mounting pressures on public education as a public good. Meanwhile, the federal government's role in education expanded dramatically. In 1979, President Jimmy Carter established the Department of Education as a cabinet-level agency, formalizing the federal commitment to ensuring equal access to education and enforcing civil rights protections. This move was intended to address long-standing inequities and to consolidate federal oversight, but it also set the stage for future debates over the proper balance between federal, state, and local control, debates that would be intensified by the neoliberal turn. Enter Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist whose ideas would profoundly shape the trajectory of American education. Friedman's 1955 essay, The Role of Government in Education, laid the foundation for the modern school choice movement, arguing that parental choice and market competition would yield better educational outcomes than centralized bureaucracies. His vision of school vouchers and privatization dovetailed with the broader neoliberal agenda, and his influence grew as policymakers sought alternatives to the perceived failures of public education. By the early 1980s, these trends converged in the Reagan administration's education policy. The landmark report, A Nation at Risk, commissioned by Reagan's Secretary of Education, Terrell Bell, declared a crisis in American education and called for sweeping reforms to restore competitiveness and rigor. Its emphasis was on accountability, standards, and performance metrics that reflected the neoliberal ethos that had taken hold. Reagan himself had campaigned on abolishing the Department of Education, signaling a desire to roll back federal involvement in favor of market-driven alternatives and state control. The result of these intersecting forces was a profound reorientation of American education, from a public good shaped by collective values and social justice to a marketized system where individual choice, competition, and performance metrics became paramount. The legacy of this shift endures in the ongoing debates over school choice, standardized testing, and the role of corporations in shaping curriculum. Reagan's neoliberal vision for standardized education, emphasizing accountability, choice, and market-driven reform, was not only maintained but expanded by subsequent administrations across party lines. From President George H.W. Bush, who convened an unprecedented education summit in 1989, to President Bill Clinton, who built on this legacy by signing the Improving America's School Act in 1994, which encouraged states to develop rigorous academic standards and assessments, and by supporting initiatives that tied federal funding to evidence of progress and accountability. The push for standardization and marketization reached new heights under George W. Bush, with the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, which mandated annual testing in math and reading required states to demonstrate adequate yearly progress, and introduced escalating sanctions for schools that failed to meet targets, including restructuring, privatization, or conversion to charter schools. President Barack Obama, while criticizing some aspects of the punitive approach, he doubled down on its core principles through the Race to the Top initiative, which incentivized states to adopt higher standards, rigorous teacher evaluations, and data-driven school turnarounds, and expanded charter schools' options. Even as Obama's Every Student Succeeds Act later rolled back some federal oversight, it preserved the emphasis on accountability and evidence-based interventions, ensuring the continuity of Reagan's neoliberal education model well into the 21st century.
And that is a really great question, because doesn't it seem suspect that we can go and define all these schools as failing, because once they're failing, then what? Through the guise of failing schools, we're losing the largest elected representative that we have in our country. That is our local school board. So when you go and take your ESA voucher and you go to some charter school, and slowly but surely it's going to shut down the public school system, all of a sudden parents have lost all choice and all voice, because charter schools are run by companies, and there's somebody making money off of the children. A public school, you still at least have your local school board, and that is your voice. And the minute you lose that, you lose your freedom. And this business of parents should have the choice to send their children to whatever school they deem fit, what's perfect for their child, blah, blah. We have that choice now. Mm-hmm. In America, I can send my child to any school I want. Whether I can afford to or not is a different story. We have that freedom. That everybody can't afford to do it, unfortunately, that is life. Unless you want to go move to Russia, which has contractor schools, which are the exact same thing as charters. So we live in a country that we do have freedom of choice. Right. And the best way to help those who are living in poverty or living in dire circumstances is to make certain that the public school provides each child an education of opportunity. And it doesn't take a lot of money. But you're not going to get senators that are up there who are being backed by donors who are pushing this to ever go and return our schools the way they need to be, unless parents revolt.
I think that you guys don't know what's going on in education right now. That's fine. How could you know unless you were working in it? But I think you need to know. It's actually the way harder part for me than just the outright behaviors, is just being up at the front, talking to a group of kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there. And they have a level of apathy that I've never seen before.
When you think about the fact that only 70% only 30%, I'll reverse it, only 30% of our students can read with proficiency. That's just absolutely unacceptable.
Look, the Department of Education's a big con job. We're ranked, so they rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th, but we're ranked number 1 in one department, costs per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. Norway, Denmark, Sweden, I hate to say it, China, as big as it is, it's ranked in the top 5. We're ranked number 40. So if we're ranked number 40, that means something's really wrong, right?
There's one key thing we're going to have to turn around, not just for our state, but for the country. If our future as a country is destined to remain the greatest country on earth, as I believe we should for the next 250 years, we're going to have to find our way out of the educational achievement crisis that we're really in today. And it is a crisis.
The 20th century describes the evolution of modern education as a developmental process within economic and industrial stages of expansion. Historically, we see humans and their social institutions being transfigured and adjusted to fit in alignment with systems of power, capital, and behavior modification. Very little of this history had much to do with demonstrations of authentic human learning and social cohesion, let alone democracy. If anything, it has only exacerbated the rate of inequality and division. From early centralizing forces of the state to utilitarian models of philanthropy and political influence of private non-governmental forces, it is clear modern education was never meant to provide what it promised to the people. By the 70s, it was no surprise to see this system morph into a pure efficiency model of monetarism, to turn institutions and families into business ventures for elite organizations. We have witnessed a similar trajectory in the medical industry of public health, with the same players dictating its form, from Rockefeller to neoliberal privatization, big pharma and now big biotech, a true American plutocracy.
Meet the Press Data Download, brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet, sponsored by Pfizer.
With progress in democracy came paternalism, but also Taylorism, a type of human instrumentalism that applies scientific models of efficiency to human behavior, a dehumanizing methodology that perceives people as props in a grander production, and institutions and industries as purely functional aspects of a larger economic and political machine. How do freedom, morality, or democracy fit in this type of model? They do not. They are mere facades and platitudes used to quell dissent, incentivize cooperation, and garner trust of a population. Did you ever think you could genuinely rely on technocratic leadership to fulfill the authentic needs of human beings? Socialists, capitalists, communists are just varieties of technocratic human capital management systems. Our future is now, and it is incorporating elements of them all. And to think, antisocial systems are being employed for pro-social reform. How well has all this progress and so-called democracy worked out for us? Well, with an empathic purpose like social reform, yet managed and executed by elitist billionaires with ulterior motives detached from ground-level realities of regular people, we cannot be too surprised by how things turned out. Unfortunately, common sense and history has been forgotten, and possibly will repeat itself. From social engineering to political industrial engineering, the key word is engineering, scientific engineering, a new hegemonic order out of social chaos. That old humanist ghost of the Enlightenment's man and environment as mechanism haunts us all to this very day. The Baconian blight. Man and environment as inherent problems to be solved, not lived and experienced. Interestingly, history has taught us that our biggest technological advancements have also been the bane of our resulting social conditions. Fascinating how these conditions have always been guided by an engineer. The fish teaching the falcon how to fly, quantifying qualia.
The terrible things are being done is what we're saying. And how? We're stopping these terrible things.
And you can stop it? I mean,
well, we are stopping it. The reason this is happening.
Sounds amazing.
What's the question about?
Do you trust the mainstream media these days?
No.
And where do you get your news from?
X.
X.
And people?
Do you guys trust the news?
No.
No. Who do you watch?
None of them. They're all a scam.
So where do you get your information from?
TikTok, I feel like, is the most reliable.
Do you guys trust the mainstream media these days?
No, don't trust anybody.
And so who should people trust? And where do you get your news from?
You do your own research. You get the information from the horse's mouth. If you want to know what Trump says, see him say it.
Yeah.
If you want to know what the Secretary of Defense is going on, see him say it.
I mean, do you trust the news these days?
Well, fuck no. They're going to lie to you every time they turn it on. It's lies, lies, lies.
Global Summit aims to bring together industry leaders to try and harness AI to further the UN's development goals in areas like health, climate and sustainability.
How do we govern technologies if we don't yet know their full potential?
And the mere fact that you are smart and got good grades, that now matters much, much less than it used to. That used to be often the main thing that mattered. Like, am I smart? Do I work hard? Did I get good grades? Which kind of means you can follow instructions and not be too much, in your own mind or something. That now is greatly devalued. What has risen in value is the question like, are you a good dog trainer, horse trainer? But with this. And it's not unrelated to being smart. But again, being smart, getting good grades, no longer a guarantee of anything.
I think we're on the same page. Schools exist. They're important. They're important for many reasons. We need to change what we do inside of them, particularly because of Gen AI, and we need to do it quickly. In addition to, I would say, regulating Gen AI so it isn't so massively in students and young people's hands without being designed for that purpose. I would say those are the two big things we need to do. But I don't think our goal inside schools, when we're educating young people, is to have a 100% personalized learning journey for every kid.
I do think AI will dramatically affect education because the AI is an extremely knowledgeable teacher, very patient, will be almost always correct, and can tailor the lessons specifically to the child. So it'll be like each child has, Einstein for a teacher. It would be something quite profound.
There's a big difference, and we need to make a big distinction between AI supporting educators in doing what they do versus going direct to young people.
And can tailor the lessons specifically to the child.
Well, let me push you on this for a second before you go here, because if I'm taking the position of the AI optimist, what I'd say is, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the AI will be better than the teachers.
So it'll be like each child has, Einstein for a teacher. So.
My kids hopefully will never be smarter than AI. They will never grow up in a world where products and services are not incredibly smart, incredibly capable. They will never grow up in a world where computers don't just kind of understand you and do, for some definition of whatever you can imagine. It'll be a world of incredible material abundance. It'll be a world where the rate of change is incredibly fast and amazing new things are happening. And it'll be a world where individual ability, impact, whatever, is just so far beyond what a person can do today.
Or even the meaning of human life, what happens when AI is mature enough and you have enough data to basically hack human beings, and you have an AI that knows me better than I know myself and can make decisions for me, predict my choices, manipulate my choices, and authority increasingly shifts from humans to algorithms. So not only decisions about which movie to see, but even decisions like which community to join, who to befriend, whom to marry, we increasingly rely on the recommendations of the AI, and what does it do to human life and human agency?
When we consider how modern education began, what it set out to achieve, how it was designed to function, and whom it was meant to serve, we may not be very surprised by these abysmal outcomes. Many of the goals seem doomed to fail. A diverse country, built on pillage and dehumanization, growing in its diversity through its consistent immigration and pluralist liberal ideals, yet at the same time sustaining a highly separatist, traditional, and ethno-religious population.
He should do his duty, and to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
How do we reconcile this conflict? Promises of equality and mobility built out of discrimination and subordination. How can any universal, standardized, compulsory system appease such a massive disconnected people that are constantly changing? It cannot. Industrial progressivism and market-based civilization directly contradicts tradition, lineage, the personal, posterity, and history itself. It is almost as if it was designed to fail at what it promised, yet succeed in what it withheld from the public. And if our education system has failed us, yet has over time produced the fourth industrial world machine for the power elite, well, then it is working as it was intended.
Well, in the year 2000, I think I'll probably be in the spaceship to the moon dictating robots to robots, or else I may be, I don't know, in charge of a robot court, judging some robots, or I may be at a funeral of a computer, or if something's gone wrong with their nuclear bombs, I may be sort of coming back from hunting in a cave.
I don't think there is going to be atomic warfare, but I think that there is going to be all this automation. People are going to be out of work and a great population. And I think something has to be done about it. I think it'll be people will be regarded more as statistics than as actual people.
I don't think it's going to be so nice. I think sort of all machines everywhere, everyone doing everything for you. You know, you'll get all bored, and I don't think it'll be so nice.
We're going to take it, we're going to make it a current, we're going to bring this into a golden age like never seen before. Remember this, China wants to do it, Japan wants to do it, all of these countries want to do it. We have to produce massive amounts of energy if we're going to produce the new, if you look at some of the things that have been done and some of the things that we're going to do, but AI needs literally twice the electricity that's available now in our country. Can you imagine?
In the Manhattan Project, it was critical that we developed an atomic bomb before Nazi Germany did. Think of the world today if they had led and had an atomic bomb before we did. The world would be unrecognizable. AI's been around for a long time, but it's hitting critical mass now. In the next few years, AI is going to change our world, not just economically, but in science and also in national defense. China is working aggressively at AI. If they got a meaningful lead on us in AI, it will be a different world in the future. We have to lead and win the AI race, just like we did Manhattan Project. This is Manhattan Project 2.
By the time you get to, say, 1970 and you have enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 20 times over, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. I've spoken a lot in different contexts about the sort of technology stagnation we've had
we'll come to
in
that
the last 50 years. But sort of one way to relate the tech stagnation to this theme is that it was just not motivated anymore. You know, if you can think of the Manhattan Project, the Apollo space program, had military motivation. And there is a certain sense in which I would like to see us accelerate technological and scientific innovation. back to the rate at which these things were progressing the first half of the 20th century.
If we can solve that, we're going to need even more data centers, and we'll also be able to invent completely new schools of scientific and intellectual thought, which will be incredible.
Certain that we are literally on the brink of a new generation of technology that can make us our better selves.
So we're training systems to acquire human goals and pursue them on their own account. And Microsoft, which owns a big chunk of OpenAI and announced that GPT-4 shows sparks of AGI, I asked the author of that paper, Sebastian Bubeck, what are these goals that the systems are acquiring? And his answer, we have no idea. And his answer, we have no idea.
20th century America, a corporation and industry giant, had more special problems than one would be willing to fully admit as a statesman. Government made many attempts to cover massive wounds up with band-aids, but bureaucracy, surveillance, and engineering of its people and world power were its dominant fashion choices. Platitudes hailing equality and what is good for the goose is good for the gander rhetoric only replaced authentic social reform with market obsession, exponential forms of empty consumption, and GDP essentialism. Indeed, a truly anti-human historical endeavor. Is it America the free or home of the slave? It appears as if, from its inception, the United States was merely a united industrial club of elitists posing as humanitarians, strategically organizing the lives and experiences of its people for the purpose of utility, productivity, and corporate scalability. There is a paradox as a result. Though we all have been used like machine mules for centralized efficiency, we also have designed our self-worth out of its functions. Many people today generationally know very little outside of their occupations and develop their sense of self out of what they do, not necessarily what they know, the quality of their character, relationships, and how they experience life. Preoccupation with efficiency, productivity, and survival has made us too tired and distracted to thoroughly evaluate the experience of life. We judge each other through our relative market values as if we were instruments. We as a culture are defined by our industrial utility and perceived value of consumption and assets. In our machinic society, we are as valuable as our things are perceived as valuable. We want what we think other people want. This system has structured it such that we see quality of life through the acquisition and maintenance of good jobs and meaningless things. Then we judge and separate ourselves based on these superficial categories. We treat ourselves and each other the same way the industrial systems treats us, as a group object. The parental state has made ignorant children of us all, and we have not fallen far from the tree. The paradox is this: the bane of our condition supplies the foundation for our value systems. Through what we despise, that which works directly in opposition of our core essences, we chase meaning, purpose, and connection. Our careers give us a sense of pride or achievement and occupy the lion's share of our lives. We have been trained over generations to have such low expectations and ambition that many of our life goals have been comprised of long journeys to acquire a basic job. Bank account-based personal worth. All we know are the financial, labor, and education systems of false value they have given us. The elusive and moving target of success and the chore and endless chase of upward mobility. Meritocracy has always been the big stick with which we have been beaten, and he who has the stick also carries the carrot. If bureaucracy is the environment we have been raised in, clearly we are products of it. Unfortunately for us, bureaucracy and its models of efficiency are antisocial. They systematically break down the fundamental social institutions we need to maintain stable social, psychological, and spiritual health. It is no surprise why none of this has ever worked, and no one is thoroughly content in this condition. Yet today, these same models of antisocial efficiency are being stretched across the entirety of our living worlds. As they utilized education as a crucible for nation-state and industrial empire development in the modern era, supermodernity, today, the informational era of surplus and networked singularity is utilizing education once more as a crucible for social and interdimensional change at the biotechnological level. What occurred then is happening now. The difference is a matter of scale and technique. Do not let the personalities fool you. Not just students, but its people alike were controlled and incentivized by way of designed educational and industrial systems and architectures for generations, very similar to the algorithmic architectures that are controlling and incentivizing the current generations today. Same anti-human industrialist philosophy and processes, just new gadgets, new techniques. Rockefeller, Ford, Carnegie, even the United States government considered subservient citizens as a requirement for utilitarian access to the intellectual and physical labor of its people, carte blanche. How else could they develop a world power and capital enterprise in as little as 100 years? Slavery today has little use for our physical bodies. It now seeks access to the interiors of our very being. Our minds, behaviors, and attention becomes the novel capital of exponential proportions, reframing and collapsing the classic principles of capitalism.
You can have any good or service you want, at will, a future of abundance for all. Well, I think once you have humanoid robots and deep intelligence, you basically have quasi-infinite products and services available. So with Tesla building the most advanced humanoid robot, then those humanoid robots can be directed by deep intelligence at the data center level. You can say you can produce any product, provide any service. There's really no limit to the economy at that point. You can make anything. I'm not sure at that point will money even be meaningful. I don't know. It might not be. It's going to be a very different world. In fact, I recommend that people read maybe the Ian Banks, the culture books, for a frame of reference. Because money is really like a database or an information system for resource allocation. But if you don't have a scarcity of resources, it's not clear what purpose money has.
You should be rooting for XAI and what he's doing in Tennessee. If you can get Elon Musk, and I hate to say this because I don't know Elon Musk, but I trust him more than anybody else because he's verbalizing the warnings. I trust him more than anybody else.
The whole point is that it's only science fiction until it's reality.
Well, as to whether it's actually going to happen, that's the choice that humanity has to make.
I'm a 16-year-old junior in high school, living in Maui, Hawaii, and this is the shit they have us learning in class. Unscramble the Thanksgiving words. I am thankful for this shit that you would do in the first grade. This is why our public school system has failed us.
In my field, generative AI is changing what we teach, and it's changing how we teach, both in profound ways. In the area of what we teach, this is a technology that is affecting almost every job, not just a handful of people in IT. The cloud transformation was a big change. This is gigantic because it affects marketing, it affects sales, it affects operations, it affects finance. Every knowledge worker job will be impacted to some extent, and over time, I believe we'll see every job impacted to some extent.
For the most intelligent inhabitants of that future world won't be men or monkeys, they'll be machines, the remote descendants of today's computers. Now, the present-day electronic brains are complete morons, but this will not be true in another generation. They will start to think, and eventually they will completely outthink their makers.
My kids hopefully, will never be smarter than AI.
Is this depressing? I don't see why it should be. We superseded the Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal men, and we presume we're an improvement. I think we should regard it as a privilege to be stepping stones to higher things. I suspect that organic or biological evolution has about come to its end, and we are now at the beginning of inorganic or mechanical evolution, which will be thousands of times swifter. But even if the future does belong to the robots, our bodies and our brains still have immense untapped potentialities. For example, to cope with the information explosion, we may develop a machine for recording information directly onto the brain, as today we can record a symphony on tape. So we may one day be able to become instant experts, learning Chinese overnight, for example. Or we may be able to recall completely memories of past events so that we seem to relive them. In fact, techniques are already known for doing this in a rather limited way at the present. Alternatively, we may prefer to totally erase past unpleasant memories.
You'll be able to do conceptual telepathy, like where you can communicate entire concepts uncompressed to someone else with a neural link or to the computer.
Elon Musk knows it's why he wants to go to Mars. It's not just about global warming for him. It's more about AI. Get humans off the planet before ASI happens. Otherwise, transhumanism has to happen. You have to have, this is Elon Musk, you have to be able to have an implant that will help you understand ASI. Otherwise, we're ants, and we will be controlled by ASI. So your thing...
But human intelligence, I think, will be dwarfed by machine intelligence. I'm not sure how to feel about that, except that it appears to be inevitable. That at some point, human intelligence will be a very small fraction of total intelligence.
I do think we need significant reform in education. I mean, the Department of Education seems to regard as its primary duty foisting propaganda on our children, as opposed to getting them a good education. It's insane.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
You know, I mean, we should be just, the priority should be teach kids skills that they will find useful later in life, and leave any sort of social propaganda out of the classroom. So.
Generally, you want education to be like as close to a video game as possible, like a good video game. Like, you do not need to tell your kid to play video games. They will play video games on autopilot all day. If you can make it interactive and engaging, then you can make education far more compelling and far easier to do.
It wouldn't be as good. That's how teaching works today. So what you actually want to have is an interactive learning experience that is as compelling as possible, and you do not actually want a teacher in front of a board doing a vaudeville act. You want it to be engaged, real-time feedback.
Quick question. One of the area of innovation is in the area of education, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are some of the ways that we can disrupt or in the area of education.
Right. Well, what Sebastian Thrun is doing and Salman Khan, I mean, I think that stuff is really disruptive, sort of online learning, and I think there's to the degree that you can gamify learning, I think that's really helpful. You want to make learning not
a chore. If people are drawn to it, like they're drawn to video games, then I think that would really help.
Is there anything there that sort of, helps push technology that you think? I mean, you look at like, self-driving cars or other things. Like, are there things from video games that, you think help push technology forward?
Well, I think, part of the reason I got interested in technology, maybe the reason was video games. So, I probably wouldn't have started programming if it wasn't for video games, or wouldn't have been as interested in computers and technology if it wasn't for video games. So I think actually video games are a very powerful force for getting young kids interested in technology. It has way bigger knock-on effects than people may realize.
America. I think this will be the most important project of this era.
Welcome to Abilene, Texas. This is the site of Project Stargate, a very mysterious, much talked about, much speculated about project that brings together OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle. If it all comes together, building after building on this red dirt behind me will be filled with chips that'll power the AI revolution.
It is very likely that Musk is more interested in the infrastructural and technological aspect of education than he is in the fundamentals of learning and teaching. Proof of this is displayed by his short-sighted view of what education actually is. He does not seem to understand how education works, just how he doesn't understand how people work, which is a theological and philosophical endeavor, not purely biological or mechanical problem to solve, or gamify like the human brain is something to be tricked into functioning properly for industrial needs. People are to be understood, not solved, not manipulated for engagement. The world shouldn't work like some massive social media community controlled by algorithms. But here we are. Imagine a reformer of social problems that gleans his entire philosophy for meaning and the pursuit of truth from science fiction writers.
I've read a lot of books. I'm somewhat of a voracious reader of books. I would say probably Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would be the single most influential book.
Adams makes the point that it's actually the question that is harder than the answer.
Even more important than the answer is the question.
And so that is my driving philosophy, is to expand the scope and scale of consciousness that we may better understand the nature of the universe.
We don't really understand the meaning of life, and we wish to understand the meaning of life. Then in order to understand the meaning of life, we should expand consciousness such that we can ask better questions, learn more, expand beyond the solar system, ensure that life on Earth is good collectively for civilization, and then we can be less dumb about the nature of the universe, and maybe we can answer some questions about where this all came from and where it's going. I think that's a sound philosophy. It's the least unsound philosophy I can think of.
But that is the foundation of my philosophy, is that, but I would like to know that we are on a path to understanding the nature of the universe and the meaning of life and what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe. And so if we expand the scope and scale of humanity and consciousness in general, which includes silicon consciousness, then that seems like a fundamentally good thing. But that is the foundation of my philosophy.
It's laughable to think normal people consider such a limited person qualified for such exponential human future decisions and consequences. If we think about it, the fact that so many people believe in and support this man in fixing the human world is indicative of the negative intellectual outcomes of universal education. Yes, his popularity proves the inadequacy of our education systems. The same education that has obviously miseducated the dunce mass who believes spaceman can fix animal man with computer. We as a population have been educated and entertained out of the ability to properly think. But there is more to it. It is not simply that most people aren't able to critically think through deception, but they also suffer from the deep influence of the cult of personality and celebritism, a type of public relations celebrity-mediated worldview that defines a major aspect of the American mind that goes way back to Bernaysian conditioning of, yes, of course, the progressive era.
Back to the United States, I decided that if you could use propaganda for war, you could certainly use it for peace. And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word Council on Public Relations. Is that in the United States, every idea that wants to establish itself, whether it's to sell more paper cups that we work with, or to make people more honest or more virtuous, depends on public consent. And so we worked out the engineering of consent, which applies to any social goal, but people who don't have social goals, unfortunately, can also employ it. But we depend upon a democratic public that theoretically and practically wants to be led to where it wants to go, which hopefully is sound, a sound life in every part of the life. This can be applied to anything from a university, to a government department, to a hospital, to a bookstore, a furniture manufacturer. And so I decided that at that time, actors and actresses did not quite belong to a family home or a family party. And I decided that if President Coolidge had breakfast with Al Jolson and the Dolly sisters, who were ecstasiastic dancers, and Charlotte Greenwood and other actors and actresses, the public would recognize that he was an extraordinary humanist kind of personality, and that obviously he couldn't have been weaned on a pickle. He must have been weaned on pure milk. And so what I did was to tell Colonel Woods to hire a couple of sleeping cars, Pullman cars, take them down to Washington overnight and have breakfast with Coolidge. And as these actors and actresses came in, I'd say, "What is your name?" And they'd say, "Al Jolson." "Mr. Jolson, President Coolidge." And we had no contact with the newspapers. They were the principal media. There was no radio and no television. And next morning, there wasn't a newspaper in this country, and there were about 2,000 dailies then, and 10,000 weeklies, that didn't have a front page story that said President Coolidge, breakfast at the White House with Al Jolson, the Dolly sisters, and other Broadway stars.
You've been doing it for 70 years. Who were some
72.
of your 72? Who were some of your early accounts? Who were clients of yours back in the very beginning?
In the very beginning, Procter & Gamble was one of our accounts. They had a white floating soap called Ivory soap.
Right.
And they came to me one day and said that mothers washed the faces of the children, and they hated soap because their eyes were stinging from the soap. And that when people grew up, they wouldn't use any soap because they get conditioned in childhood, according to Freud, my uncle.
So you get ahead of yourself, but it's true, your uncle was Sigmund Freud.
And so we made a research, made a study, and we found a sculptor, Brenda Putnam, who used soap instead of wax in developing her sculpture. And it then occurred to me that if we could develop soap sculpture competitions, I went to a psychologist and he said every child has a creative instinct. if we got some sculptors to be judges and had soap sculpture competitions for children in different age groups.
That would get them accustomed to using the soap.
That would get them to love soap.
Did it work?
Only accustomed to it. The fascinating thing to me was that after the first year, 22 million children were loving soap, and the sale of soap just went up.
Well, if you say so.
This is a matter
of record. We could probably chart that.
Dow Jones reports.
Yeah.
You can look them up if you want.
Do you suppose most world leaders are advised by public relation councils today?
Yes.
Why is that important?
It's basically important because people power rules every country. Public relations embraces what I call the engineering of consent, based on Thomas Jefferson's principle that in a democratic society, everything depends on the consent of the people.
Jealous. Well, Jack Curtiz in person. That's the trouble with you actors, Ronnie. No appreciation for what we directors do to make you look good.
No, screw your freedom.
Are you a homosexual, Clay?
I am, yes, Mr. Trump, I am.
No, is that true?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Why do you think we have actors and celebs in political positions of power? Why do you think our news, politics, and entertainment media can hardly be told apart? Because it works. The people listen. They engage. They believe by suspending their disbelief and don't think twice about it. They pick their team and get emotionally involved in the game. Sports, media, and politics, all great American pastimes. Added there is the very American plague of the halo effect, where just because one is perceived as attractive or wealthy and successful, they are perceived as having far more trustworthy abilities than they actually have. Like, since Elon is rich, scientifically smart, and makes great businesses, he can also define what is best for humankind at a qualitative level, and qualify to attempt solving the deepest questions about civilization and the universe. It is an idiotic position to have, though it is also understood that his newly acquired conservatism, LARP, and nationalist flirtations have caused many libertarian centrists as well as right-wing fanboys and girls to swoon. The halo effect causes people to believe a computer engineer can also be qualified to inform an entire world of medical physicians on how they should treat diseases in their patients. Jordan Peterson is another example of this.
He has an operating method that he's developed that I would say is very unusual by modern standards. The top line thing is just this incredible devotion from the leader of the company to fully, deeply understand what the company does and to be, completely knowledgeable about every aspect of it and to be in the trenches and talking directly to the people who do the work, deeply understanding the issues and, being the lead problem solver in the organization. And basically what Elon does is he shows up every week at each of his companies. He identifies the biggest problem that the company's having that week and he fixes it, right? And then he
you got to look at Elon. I mean, SpaceX. I mean, Tesla. Neuralink. The guy is our Einstein, and so and I like to be helpful to him and his company as much as we can.
Well, I suppose I have a philosophy of curiosity. I want to find out the nature of the universe, understand the universe. And in order to do that, we have to travel to other planets, see other star systems, maybe other galaxies, find perhaps other alien civilizations, or at least the remnants of alien civilizations. Gain a better understanding of where is this universe going, where did it come from, and what questions do we not yet know to ask about the answer that is the universe. Well, I suppose I have a philosophy of curiosity.
The reason I believe in sort of truth and honesty is because I'm trying to understand the universe. I'm trying to understand reality. We're trying to understand what's the meaning of life. What are we here for? What's going on? If you're not rigorous about truth and honesty, then you're obviously going to live in a deluded world. you won't understand the nature of reality. I don't know. I mean, if it's a good thing, but it's just FYI. We could be somebody's like video game right now.
Right. It's true.
Whose avatar are you?
I think that.
If there was a simulation, like you're in a simulation, guys. And it's simulations all the way down. It's a simulation and a simulation and a simulation. Seems likely.
Watched Musk very up close for a couple of years. I'm going to say something that you might think is naive, but I really believe it, which is he has certain missions he's had his whole life. He read Isaac Asimov.
Yeah,
he read the Robot series. He thought the robots might turn on us. I have to come in and save us from hostile AI. I have to make us multi-planetary.
Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too.
Of abundance for all.
Society and its corporate leadership are so one-track minded that it appears Elon is the only hope we as a species have left. Similar to how the weak and inadequate political leadership we've had since Roosevelt were the only ones fit to run for authority over a country. As if. It's all a sham, guided by industry, capital, and Luciferian historical networks of nepotism and incest. But people seek a king, a master, and want to believe man is inherently good and trustworthy as if he was born that way. Yet we understand all men need to be taught how to be good. Today, no one can even define the good. Another indication of the failure of universal education programming, but also the success of industrialist tech-driven dominance over how societies are developed and human futures are dictated. You see, all these networks of politicians, banking elite, and industrialists have serious skin in the game. Their financial futures depend on Elon's success. And don't let the democratic conflicts fool you. Democratic or leftist support of Elon, the personality, has no impact on the overall technological direction of industry and society. Dialectics like this are very common. Bush versus Kerry, Clinton versus Trump, they all work for the same masters. Now back to Elon's views on education. In fact, he has even designed his own education model for the future, a functioning school to boot.
Sure. So how would you educate your 5 boys?
Actually, I created a little school. Yeah.
What kind of school? Could you describe to us?
Sure. It's small. It's only got 14 kids now, and it'll have 20 kids in September. It's called Ad Astra, which means to the stars. That's maybe a bit different from most other schools. I think the parents will still be responsible for values and morals. I do think AI will dramatically affect education because the AI is an extremely knowledgeable teacher.
How do you feel about that more utopic vision?
I think we're on the same page, but I don't think our goal inside schools, when we're educating young people, is to have a 100% personalized learning journey for every kid. I think there's a big difference, and we need to make a big distinction between AI supporting educators in doing what they do versus going direct to young people.
If I'm taking the position of the AI optimist, what I'd say is, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the AI will be better than the teachers.
Here, K through 12th graders are proudly cutting classes, spending just 2 hours a day learning math, science, reading, and writing, all with the help of an AI tutor and without a single teacher.
Morning launch time.
Mackenzie Price is the co-founder of Alpha School and its 2-hour learning program.
This is a school without teachers. We have no teachers at our schools. Can you believe that?
The Educators are a suite of AI-powered apps that gamify lessons, monitor progress, and with the help of eye tracking, keep tabs on students' attention span.
Who's teaching you?
I think the app is teaching me, but I'm also teaching myself.
All as adult guides, many of which have never been teachers, look on without interfering with their robot counterparts.
Are you comfortable having guides in the classroom that don't necessarily know the core curriculum? It's okay that our guides aren't experts in physics or math or whatever they're doing. They are experts in their students. It almost sounds like the guides here are told, you're here to lead the kids to AI. Our guides are not allowed to teach. They are coaching students to become self-driven learners.
Price says the AI tutor personalizes lessons for each student, allowing them to learn class material in half the time, and according to data from Alpha, score in the 90th percentile on standardized tests in most grade levels.
This one's a little unusual.
It all comes as students nationwide grapple with AI's role. While some critics say it's too soon to know if the tech's having a positive effect in classrooms, one study found generative AI tutors can sometimes inhibit learning if students become too reliant on the tool.
How do you make sure that the AI that is teaching kids is doing what it's supposed to be doing?
We have a lot of guardrails in place to make sure that kids are not dealing with some of the issues that come with what we hear about with AI.
Still, at Alpha, where tuition costs $40,000 a year, academics are just the beginning.
This is called our check chart.
Each student must complete a long list of tasks before they can level up.
Welcome to the Alpha School Airbnb.
Like this group of 6th graders who are running a real Airbnb.
How old are you?
I'm 11.
You're 11?
Yeah.
And how much money did you guys make with this Airbnb?
So we have $10,000 of confirmed bookings.
Over at Alpha High School.
You made an app. Wait,
I developed an app.
16-year-olds Elle and Sloan are getting ready to pitch an AI-enabled app that gives dating advice.
I want to ask my crush out to prom in front of all of her friends. Is that a good idea?
It really depends on her personality.
So you've been learning from AI, and now you're building your own AI?
Yes.
A full circle experiment.
Schooling.
Yeah.
Talk about your experience with bringing children out here and interrupting their schooling, interrupting their social circle that they already had, enrolling them into a new social construct and school.
Okay, well, I may not be the best person for the conversation. I'm not big on the system to begin with, right? So
school system.
I am not. I just never felt like it served us, and so for me, it was always adverse for me. My kids have been on tour with me since they were born, so my system has been a little bit different. And they're just bright and smart kids, and they're all, it's like, it feels like America in the sense where like no one's behind. They're actually way ahead.
Your kids are homeschooled.
My kids are homeschooled.
But that's a conversation too, because a lot of people in America want to start the homeschooling process. They're similar. One of your children is getting homeschooled by artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
Well, I was skeptical at first, but my older kid was in such a good program, and it didn't start at the age that my son is at, so I needed to find something that I thought was comparable. And it's amazing, honestly. What's great about it is that the AI system, it's a new system. It's called Fusion Academy, but basically it's a new system, and it adjusts to according to like what he's learning and what stage he's at. So it's never just like brushing past something and be like, okay, we got to get to the next stage. It's not rushing him into anything. So if he's excelling in writing or reading, he could be in 5th grade, even though should be at a 3rd or 4th grade level, right? So it's not holding him back. It's accredited, and then it makes it so that we can travel and I can move and they can see the world. And to me, it's been the most amazing education. My kids their passports are crazy, right? Like their passports will rival anybody. They've been all over the world. I can dip out to Thailand. I can go to, like South Africa. I can go to Egypt. Like we can do whatever we want, and it doesn't ever interrupt their schooling. To me, homeschooling is
it's 2 hours a day.
The best.
The AI.
2 hours a day. Which really, if you look at real school, like the kids are in school doing nonsense for most of the day. It's like recess and playing, and it's like, what is happening here?
First of all, I do think that education is going to change over the next some number of years. I can't say 1 year, but it's probably less than 20 years. Something's going to change. And the reason for that is it's just a lot more scalable to teach with AI than with teachers. And by the way, that doesn't mean the teachers are going to go away. You still need people to take care of the students. And you still need, I also don't think schools are going to go away because you still need childcare.
In your view, like schools could be childcare, but everybody's Duolingoing.
I think it's going to be something like that. I may not be Duolingo. There's one teacher and like 30 students. Each teacher cannot give individualized attention to each student, but the computer can. And really the computer can actually know with very precise knowledge. You can have very precise knowledge about what this one student is good at and bad at, that the teacher just has no chance of having because there's 30 students and they just cannot give you that. So I do think that it would be more effective if some of that time is being spent with essentially an AI teaching you. I do think it's going to get to that. It's also the case that there are extremely good teachers, there's for sure, but there's not very many of them. And certainly most everybody in the world doesn't have access to a good one. So I think that there's going to be some some change like that. I do think it's going to take a while because, you know, changes in education are very slow.
New thinking. The world of education is in a state of flux. The 3 R's now stand for rework, revamp, and review. And this thinking applies to both high school and college. And I don't mean the College of Cardinals. It's been long overdue and now accelerated by the role of artificial intelligence. A poll of 1,000 college students showed that almost 90% of them used the chatbot to help with homework. And that was taken right after the launch of ChatGPT. More recent research shows widespread use of AI in both high schools and colleges. The question today is not are students getting help from AI, but are they doing any of the work themselves?
We get calls every single day from students accused of academic integrity violations associated with AI.
Attorneys Susan Stone and Christina Supler are the co-chairs of the Student and Athlete Defense Practice Group, focusing on helping students when accused of cheating using AI.
What we're seeing in our law practice is this inherent tension between students and oftentimes professors on what is responsible and ethical use of AI.
Establishing where the line is drawn can be difficult. While programs like Grammarly help with phrasing, spelling, and punctuation, other programs can go much further. ChatGPT can, in a matter of seconds, create everything from a few sentences to a full paper. Complicating things further, many of the systems used to check for plagiarism themselves rely on AI.
One thing some schools have considered going back to is this: a notepad and a pen or a pencil.
Kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there. And they have a level of apathy that I've never seen before in my whole career. Punishments don't work because they don't care about them. They don't care about grades. They don't care about college. It's like you are interacting with them briefly in between hits of the internet, which is their real life.
We're actually using our brains wrong. What happens effectively is that when you don't have something to do and your mind wanders, it turns on a set of structures in your brain called the default mode network. That's when you think about nothing. If I put you into an fMRI machine, I say, hey man, think about nothing. These are the parts of your brain that are going to illuminate. And when you're feeling bored and your mind is wandering, it turns out those are the parts of your brain that you need to access questions of life's meaning. Now, you see where I'm going with this, right? If you create an anti-boredom machine where you never access the default mode network, you're never going to be exploring questions of life's meaning. And that's what actually lies behind the mental health crisis for young people today. Not only can they not articulate the meaning of their lives, they're not even looking. And the reason they're not even looking is they're not in the parts of the brain where they need to be to look.
Kumar adds that students skip out because they don't feel they're learning anything new. They can get what they need based on their own with class materials. So if AI can do all the work, and class attendance is unnecessary, then why even invest the 4 years to get a degree? The White House seems to support this position in its own way. President Trump recently signed an executive order that states the government is no longer behind the one-size-fits-all approach to education, which previous administrations promoted as college for all. This new order is designed to modernize American workforce programs to prepare citizens for the high-paying skilled trade jobs of the future.
First graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. Now, okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful? How can it be helpful in one-on-one instruction? First graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades.
We hate to see someone leave education because of problems within the classroom. Give me some examples of what the students are saying to you.
I do know that a lot of times in my English classroom, I would ask them to write down a short response or just 5 sentences to answer a question. And a lot of times it would be about 2.5 sentences and they would say, well, I can't think of anything else to say, or, well, why do I have to answer in complete sentences? Like, you get the point from what I'm saying in just this little sentence. And then a lot of times I would assign essays, long form essays, and I would ask them, was this really you? And I'd run it through an AI generator. And of course it would say 100% ChatGPT or AI. And I would speak to the student and they would more so question of, well, if I have to redo this, how much is it really going to affect my grade? Can I just take the 0?
Gosh, trying to take the easy way out. Is it promoting just a laziness among our children?
I suppose. And a lot of them are just feeling as though they don't really need to do the work anymore because AI will just do it for them.
Yeah, I know you're a proponent of getting technology out of our classrooms, getting the phones out of our classrooms. I still can't believe some schools are allowing that.
This is about to become the UK's first teacherless classroom, where 20 GCSE students will spend the year being taught by artificial intelligence instead of human teachers. The platforms learn what each student excels in and what they need more help with, and then it adapts their lessons for the term. Strong topics are moved to the end of term so they can be revised, while weak topics will be tackled more immediately. And each student's lesson plan is bespoke to them. GCSE students have been testing out the new tech.
Teachers don't know exactly precisely what I'm unable and able to do, whether the AI can just figure out just by a few questions what I'm weak in and what are my strong points, and it helps me develop into a much smarter student.
Although there won't be teachers in the classroom, there will be 3 learning coaches to help with behaviour and softer subjects that AI might struggle with.
They're not being taught subjects by the learning coaches, but we are covering soft skills like public speaking, debate, and the really important personal aspects of a person that you really want to bring out and develop, and turning young people into young adults.
So what can create one-on-one tutoring opportunity for every child in the world?
AI. My kids use it, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
As in, like, they're interacting, and it's adapting to their speed. My son was learning about division, and it's asking him to smash glass and how many pieces he smashes it into with this hammer. And, you know, it's saying things like, no, Xander, go for it, really smash it. And he's loving it, right?
Is that synthesis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an investor in this company.
Oh, well,
yeah.
it was...
You better know how to do something.
Especially with the job situation.
Especially with what's coming. Change is a warning of what's coming.
What's coming, Barry?
Technology.
Many problems come with this direction Elon Musk is preparing for the future of the public mind. Let us run through them briefly. Firstly, Astra and Musk's education model is a spitting image of neoliberal efficiency. It is no surprise that Elon has been spending years retweeting old clips of Milton Friedman, clearly his economic philosophy mentor. What is much worse is that he is applying automated digital interoperability to anti-human and anti-social neoliberal economic principles. If people think the system of late is slavery, they have no idea how intense this new kind of human capital slavery will be. Biodigital convergence network systems as the infrastructural foundations of digital civics and citizenry will make the antebellum master-slave relationships look like Roosevelt's square deal. Reincorporating ownership over the physical bodies of its populations in a new way, one that transcends the race-based slavery of the past. A new manifest destiny, a digital colonialism that does not see race and only sees data.
Again, we're doing bio-inspired compute. I think the next frontier that's maybe taboo is really viewing our biology similar to sort of software 2.0, right? Software 2.0 is deep learning models. We have parameters, we have prompts, right? You could think of, like, I don't know, peptides as prompts for your system, right? And then you could think of your parameters as your genes, right? And I think we're going to start hacking both. And there's no reason we can't have as fast progress on the biological substrate as the silicon substrate, right?
Yeah, we can go together.
Well, but the point is that if we don't, like, things that don't accelerate, things that are constantly evolving and trying to adapt to optimize themselves towards growth, they tend to fade, right? And so we actually, it's not like, oh, the future is doomed or we're set. It's like, no, we gotta like actively keep working on it. Like we actually need to accelerate biotech research. We need to deregulate it. We need to be more open-minded about it. I think this is the next frontier. I know like the debate right now in America has been about like semiconductors and AI, but I think biotech's the next big frontier.
And the digital revolution and the virtual revolution is spilling over into the biotechnological revolution. And then we're going to be patterning biology, which is also software, right? Which is also a subversive and psychedelic idea that all is programmable and everything can be upgraded and everything can be retuned and everything can be transformed. And then nanotechnology, which sees the material world as programmable atoms, another psychedelic idea. So when Leary said you experience a fresh and hardly bearable ecstasy of direct energy exploding on your nerve endings, that has been made manifest by digital technology, virtual metaverses, biotechnological mRNA vaccines, and eventually nanotechnology creating buildings that self-assemble. We are living in a magical world. And if you could time-lapse human progress, it would look like our minds, our consciousnesses, the imagination is spilling out of us, and we are actualizing the human imagination. We are designing the world and ourselves into being, right?
We will have our robot becoming less metal, more organic. At the same time, we will have human beings who will make more and more use of artificial organs, of metal and plastic, artificial hearts, artificial kidneys, artificial lungs, replace bones by light metal substitutes. In short, we may have a society in which robots will drift away from total metal toward the organic, and human beings will drift away from the total organic toward the metal and plastic. And that somewhere in the middle, they may eventually meet. Now, when we have a kind of metal-organic hybrid creature, will it matter that he was originally metal and became metal-organic, or that he was originally organic and became metal-organic? Or will it not matter? Will we then have formed a kind of mixed culture, which perhaps might be higher, more efficient, better than either culture separately, if I can call the robot system a culture?
A picture may no longer be worth 1,000 words. These days, the picture that the camera takes may well not be the picture that we end up seeing in newspapers and magazines. Technology makes it difficult, maybe even impossible, to tell what's real and what's not.
It tingles at first, but you get used to it.
And I think probably as the years progress, it'll become like less and less like the dominant art form. I think it's just morphing into something completely new.
What do you think that will look like?
I mean, a lot of it is like games, gaming, gamification of things. But that's like where, and a kind of like this idea of like singularity, where it's like everything is starting to just become one thing. It's like everything and nothing. Like there is no meaning, so it really frees you up. It's all kind of post-meaning, right?
There's to the degree that you can gamify learning, I think that's really helpful. You want to make learning not a chore. If people are drawn to it, like they're drawn to video games, then I think that would really help.
Yet Elon Musk pretends to be some type of humble everyman and billionaire for the working people. Someone we can trust, someone who could do no wrong.
Nobody bats 1,000. We will at times make a mistake, we'll act very quickly to correct it. I am under such an extreme spotlight, so much scrutiny, that it's literally impossible for me to get away with anything nefarious, and obviously nor do I wish to. So this is a case where we have radical transparency. We're actually willing to admit that we do make mistakes. Often people are not willing to admit they make mistakes, but we are. But we want to emphasize we fix them quickly, and we're trying to do the right thing for the American taxpayer, for the American people. And I think history will be the judge that what we've done here and what we're doing is a very good thing for the strength and future of America.
So, I mean, we should be the priority should be teach kids skills that they will find useful later in life.
His philosophy of education is very similar to the Rockefeller model, in that he believes it is ultimately a utility that is mainly fit to supply industrial and economic efficiency. He has zero regard or understanding for the whole of education and learning, and the concept of the whole student, because the bureaucratic outlook perceives things that do not adhere to the model of efficiency as completely irrelevant and irrational. The humanities, for example. If Elon's model became a universal norm, we would be educating people to operate as flesh-covered computers, not diverse human beings with beating hearts. Here we see how he cannot understand education proper because he is working from a partial deck. Just like he cannot fully comprehend the transcendence of the human being and justification of core values is because he is limited to a materialist paradigm. He can only compare life and humanity to derivative systems of computation. Life becomes a game of button pushing, input-output mechanisms controlled by experts and specialists. This is why he is constantly appealing to video games and science fiction to make his points.
I think actually the reality is that if we get rid of nonsense regulations and shift people from the government sector to the private sector, we will have immense prosperity, and I think we will have a golden age in this country, and it'll be fantastic.
His views on the purpose, goals, and on who education should serve are mere mirrors of elitist reformists of the past. This isn't about saving taxpayers' money or fixing education. His neoliberal model simply upgrades Milton Friedman's arguments made in the early 80s. I suspect he is more interested in the massive behavioral data banks of the Department of Education and the new automated infrastructure he can offer in exchange. His manipulative use of political platitudes like freedom, democracy, and abundance are ploys to sell his industrial ambitions, products, and services. I am up to be wrong about this, but all the proper signals are there.
Is the battle between government of decades of buildup and business, which you guys are, is that like a train hitting each other? I mean, it seems like it's pretty disruptive.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America is going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. Critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future.
So we have to really delete entire agencies, many of them. And that's not to say there won't be an increase over time of bureaucracy in some new administration, but it'll be from a much lower baseline.
Though he rails against government bureaucracy and standardization, he is bringing in a much more pernicious form of these very things. If he is successful, he will establish a new and more pervasive and permanent type of standardization. Algorithms, the new authority, an alternative bureaucracy, a more efficient form of centralization. This is not freedom. This is not progress.
If you want to improve population health, you have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
Because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Who's the smartest guy you've ever met?
Larry Ellison's very smart.
6-hour normal school day into only 2 hours, and it's not like with a teacher standing in front of you. It's with an AI app that's personalized to skills that you need to learn.
I feel like public schools need to have an open mind and really start leveraging the power of AI and individualized learning models.
Imagine AI-driven pedagogy as a new form of standardization, authorizing what we know and limiting the scope of what we can know. Just another extension of the power structure that still relies on establishment propaganda information for its coding.
Can you help me out with question number 39 here?
Of course. Is this the problem?
Yes, I don't really understand what to do here.
No problem. Let's take this to the black.
Automated textbooks that talk back, and truncated education for vocational human itemizing, where Taylorism meets systems theory and human learning is replaced by machine learning. Not much has truly changed outside of velocity. Replacing the social element of learning, removing the human element of thinking under the guise of personalized education via automated tutors. This is all about human capital centralization. From personalized custom medicine,
You can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer, for your particular cancer aimed at you.
to customized education.
Now, it's no secret, one-on-one tutoring leads to better education outcomes. Kids learn more information in a shorter period of time. Elon Gill points out that there's a 2 sigma improvement in the learning outcome for a child if they have that personalized tutor. Additionally, students ask more questions because they don't fear being judged by their peers, and they gain higher levels of confidence, which leads to better retention of the information. That's exactly what we want in the classroom. But one-on-one personalized tutoring, it's a luxury unavailable to most American families. Schools are overwhelmed with way too many students, and the average parent doesn't have enough money to afford a private tutor for each of their children. This is all changing rapidly with the rise of artificial intelligence, and this is what gets me personally really excited about this.
What we discover is Trump and Doge are pushing the same neoliberal no child left behind philosophy as the Bush administration, and no different from Reagan's Nation at Risk Education Standards Project. The ultimate goal of education in their eyes is efficiency and market competition, giving gold stars to their litter of pet citizenry, quantifying qualia, measuring human value. They continue to make consumer drones, not actual learning and thinking human beings. This is not reform, nor revolution. We are merely automating the standardized testing programs of the past, gearing education towards meeting testing standards and market competitiveness.
So they rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th.
There's a school in Texas that started using artificial intelligence tutors in the classroom, and student test scores have skyrocketed to the top 2% in the entire country.
I just read that China is mandating that students are going to study AI by 4th grade. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think Americans should learn how to work with AI at an early age?
Absolutely, because the world is going with more advanced technology. And AI, well, it's already in so much of the things that we do that we don't even really realize that it's there. But as industry demands more and more efficiencies with AI, and what's the next thing after AI? Our students have to learn. Just as they first learned to type, and then they went on to use computers, and now there's AI.
So how do you think we do that? How do we incentivize our educators, our educational institutions, even the free market to enter into a competitive market?
But what we'd like to do is to make sure that we encourage states to look at, as I said, best practices and what tools are available. And just as the private sector now develops textbooks and curriculum and presents it to state boards of education that they get adopted for those states. Well, I think there's more and more from the private sector through, AI technology and development that would come in place. And they're going to be those schools who are going to say, you know what, we're going to adopt this, we're going to try this. And they'll see the results. And once the results are in, then everyone is like, wow, that's best practices. Relative to AI and other technology, it's a demand. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned earlier, not only is it a working tool, but it's also a learning tool, because AI with one-on-one tutoring can just be amazing. I was actually at a recent convention, a conference, and they were talking about AI and how students who were being taught through this program could learn more in 2 hours than other students that were in school all day. And so that's an amazing concept.
It only speeds up the process of what Rockefeller began to do in 1903 with the General Board of Education and its focus on industrial efficiency. What about Horace Mann? Who needs common schools? Who needs standardized teacher accreditation when you have standardized algorithms that teachers have to get trained and accredited to use, whereby they become mere assistants to machine universal education models? Imagine how this will collapse the teacher-student relationship over time. Unfortunately, futurists and tech elite want to fully integrate these technologies into every aspect of human life.
Be better than the teacher. I'm not saying I believe this, but I want to make you argue with
you're pushing on it. I get it.
The AI optimist case.
But the question is, better at what? So teachers do many, many things. Kids learn in relationships with other humans. We've evolved to do that. I do not think that we will go away from that, or we may go away and then we'll be like, oh my God, that was a huge mistake, and 10 years later go back. What we don't want to do is bring AI in and have every kid sitting in front of a AI tutor alone at their desk for 8 hours a day. That's not the future that is going to help our kids.
The idealism of reformists and moderates are no match for the appetite of pure efficiency and the raw nature of neoliberal expansion. They truly believe their technologies are more fulfilling and will perfect the natural human experience. Education and learning is also part of this.
I mean, in some sense, I think the Platonic ideal state is a very tiny reasoning model with 1 trillion tokens of context that you put your whole life into. The model never retrains, the weights never customized, but that thing can reason across your whole context and do it efficiently. And every conversation you've ever had in your life, every book you've ever read, every email you've ever read, everything you've ever looked at is in there, plus connected to all your data from other sources. And, your life just keeps appending to the context, and your company just does the same thing for all your companies.
In fact, we're an essential infrastructure company, not unlike the first industrial revolution. When people realized, GE, Westinghouse, Siemens, realized that there was a new type of technology called electricity, and new infrastructure has to be built all around the world. And these infrastructure became essential part of social infrastructure. That infrastructure is now called electricity. Years later, this is during all of our generation, we realized there was a new type of infrastructure. And this new infrastructure was very conceptual, very hard to understand. And this infrastructure called information. This information infrastructure, the first time it was described, made no sense to anybody. But we now realized it is the internet. Well, there's a new infrastructure now. This new infrastructure is built on top of the first two. And this new infrastructure is an infrastructure of intelligence. I know that right now, when we say there's an intelligence infrastructure, it makes no sense. But I promise you, in 10 years' time, you will look back and you will realize that AI has now integrated into everything. And in fact, we need AI everywhere. And every region, every industry, every country, every company, all needs AI. AI has now part of infrastructure.
These machines will occupy as much as efficiency and market control will provide. Human sentiments and moral considerations do not fit within the efficiency model. They don't care what you think is good. In their worldview, the good can only present a form of utility. All institutions and people within them become extensions of the technologies imposed on them. Disguised as tools and services, they turn the user into a tool and serve no one but the ownership and power.
When will you have the answers that you're searching for?
Some questions we'll be able to answer in a few years, but some of the really interesting questions about these long-term outcomes, we're going to have to wait a while because they need to happen.
That delay leaves researchers who study technology's impact on very small children anxious.
In many ways, the concern that investigators like I have is that we're sort of in the midst of a natural, kind of uncontrolled experiment on the next generation of children.
Like I said, I think phones are here to stay. Phones are amazing. Love my phone.
So that's the primary compute device you think in people's pockets?
I think that's still going to be the primary compute device in people's pockets for a long time. I think that this newer interface that we're talking about will kind of look like there's a sort of companion layer. We think of it as a companion layer. You can think of it maybe as an AI interface layer. We think that that interface layer needs to have these characteristics that we think make it a companion, like memory. It needs to like remember you and have like a relationship with you, be very natural, etc. So, you know, it needs those characteristics. That is sort of the system that you are interacting with every day in a natural way. What will make one instance of that better than another is how much you like talking to it. Its personality, its naturalness, it's sort of how much it makes you feel like you're talking to a real person and so on. The delightfulness is just a product experience thing, user experience. And then on the other side, that layer will talk to downstream services, whether that's kind of, you know, normal digital services like whatever digital services you have, search, et cetera, or other AI systems that can themselves do things for you, interact with services and so on. But I think it's going to be mediated by this companion layer that you actually want to interact with.
Obvious that agents will be a part of our future. It's obvious that we will give them agency to transact for us. Do we want that to again be in this corporate-owned financial network, or do we want a financial network that the internet owns and is a layer on top of the internet?
How do you think things are going for humanity right now?
Oh, we're screwed. So where we're at right now is a huge epidemic of loneliness. It's not a secret, but it's sometimes maybe hard to grasp how big this problem is. If before we had, I don't know, 12, 13 hours a day to walk around, see people, meet people. Now we spend, 7, 8 hours on our phone. We don't have those serendipitous moments. No one's really trying to interact with each other in real life that much. And we're losing the skills. Basically, younger people just don't know anymore how to have a real life conversation because they're used to text, which is a lot lower risk. You have time to think about your response. They feel very intimidated by that real life interaction. So that's where we are now. So I'm not in the camp of people that just think that we need to put down our phones and touch grass, because I think it's highly unrealistic.
We're actually using our brains wrong. If you create an anti-boredom machine where you never access the default mode network, you're never going to be exploring questions of life's meaning. And that's what actually lies behind the mental health crisis for young people today.
As we're sitting here, I've been wearing right over here on my lapel this device. It's limitless.ai. I don't know if you can see this in my screen. It's about the size of a quarter on both sides, and it just clips on. And this is listening to every conversation I have through the day, and it's being transcribed and fed up to a large language model that I can then query about the conversations I had through the day. And I think ultimately this is likely to be what is being developed. And so we're heading towards a society of not only constant surveillance, but where all of us are recording everything, all of this data being soaked up and being made accessible and available, to yourself in part, but there are going to be companies that are soaking it in, offering to buy it from you, to use it, to understand what's going on in the world.
wearable devices. So these are brain sensors that are starting to be embedded in everyday devices, but until now have been a number of niche companies that really have focused on mindfulness and meditation. The use of, for example, brain sensors that can pick up electrical activity in the brain at a pretty low resolution, but advances in AI have both improved what the signal is that can come from the brain and enabled the miniaturization of those products. As a lot of the major tech companies start to invest in these brain sensors, it's a huge, I think, untapped market in many ways of integrating them into everyday devices. These are earbuds or watches or headphones and the soft cups around the ears. Many of those products are hitting the market this year, and others are hitting them within the next 2 years, such that people can listen to music, a phone call, etc., while having those devices in ears. Initially, what they will be capable of doing is very high-level brain state reading. Things like, are you tired? Are you paying attention? Is your mind wandering? Are you happy or sad? They maybe enable interaction like up, down, left, right for interaction with other technologies. And they're being embedded into things like virtual reality headsets.
High-tech guru Clifford Stoll was one of the first scientists on the internet. He's an expert in computer programming, but he's also one of an increasingly vocal group of skeptics wondering if computers really are the best way to teach kids.
There's nobody standing up saying, I'm outraged at this waste of money, at something that is obsolete quickly and doesn't do what it's intended.
Might sound a little strange, but a large number of Dallas teachers have admitted playing hooky from school. The reason? Burnout. In a survey released today by the Dallas Federation of Teachers, more than 60% said that they took off at least one day last year because of stress. Pay and paperwork are the problems.
Over 50% stated that given the opportunity, they probably wouldn't ever make teaching their career again. But the same 50 to 60% said they're staying. That means we've got a lot of unhappy people. It means we have one big prison farm, doesn't it?
Hiscox plans to take the survey results to the school board in hopes of getting teachers some job improvement.
The real victims here are not just the students, but the teachers as well. We need teachers, good teachers, of passion, know-how, and unique abilities. Soon, like the tech industry, the education industry will turn teachers into machine learning management employees. The entire ecosystem presents a future of dehumanization, depersonalization, and desocialization at one of the most fundamental levels of life, learning, which is a social institution with deeply social frameworks. Frameworks computation cannot replace or embody and will only atrophy away.
We have built a world that is incredibly precarious, or the future just seems so dim right now, in terms of the environment, in terms of politics, in terms of jobs or university. And so in a world which things feel so insecure and risks seem harder to make than ever before, I don't think we should be surprised when all sorts of people turn to these tools that promise us answers. They promise us writing that will be smooth. They promise us something quick and easy, and in some ways that you don't have to be accountable for, right? If you can shrug and say, oh, the algorithm did it. I didn't do it.
Without that relationship, the tech means nothing. And so that's what bothers me the most about people saying AI is the solution for the teacher shortage. And I'm like, no, like that's so dismissive of what we do as teachers, you know?
I think it's so dismissive of who we are as humans. I think the role of the teacher obviously is so crucial in any classroom, but the role of the students in their relationship with one another is also often, I think, where some of the most important learning happens.
Elon's gamified and automated model of education doesn't simply rob humans of essential social and cultural capacities for development, but they also turn them into pure information, human capital markets to be farmed and potential labor forces to be exploited. If this model were to be transmitted into the general education system, outside of his privatized endeavor, it will negatively affect them by incentivizing infrastructural and pedagogical change through dehumanizing automated forces, attracting teachers and students alike, via high pay private corporations would be able to offer, and gamification-based engagement farming curriculum that young children will not be able to ignore. Ultimately, it will only hurt them all, teachers, children, parents, and the family in the end.
Refuse to have any online tech, anything go in school. It is a life and death struggle. We cannot afford to have it in at all. Their tools coming in are a way of attacking us.
Then in a few years, it's only restricted by the number of robots we can produce. The number of motorcycles and cars we produce is 70 million each a year. So let's say robots are similar. You get that disruption. As you said, Peter, you estimated 40 cents an hour for an R1 unitary robot. And that will be as capable as a human probably in a year or two. Optimus will be the same. This is the biggest crisis that we have coming because it's an unemployment, underemployment question of meaning. When a technology can do the work better than you can, what is your meaning?
School choice and what the future of school looks like, and tracking children in terms of their behaviors in school, and data privacy, and the shift to competency-based, mastery-based, proficiency-based learning. There are all of these things bubbling up, but I think the piece that's missing is what the future economy is, and the push towards recreating children as digital citizens that will be part of a global workforce that will be mediated by artificial intelligence based on all the little data points that are being collected on them in the classroom, both about what they know and about how they think and about what kind of team members they are. Is this freedom and choice, meaning that really all of the stuff that we're doing in these digital spaces is intelligence, right? We show our intelligence, our cognitive intelligence, our emotional intelligence, and all of this is being hoovered up to create a simulation of us and then to make predictions about us as future citizens of the world and as future workers, as future human capital. Moving forward, global investors are going to start to be making bets on human capital. One of the things that gets obscured is the fact that the future work is remote. Like not just remote platform work, but literally remote through robots. The government provides access and the training of the children into this future, but the future of work is literally being run by the global corporations, which again, most of them, they're global, they're multinational, they don't have roots in any one country to
so
really.
It's not really the government. So I think that you're right, because the right would say, oh, I want less government and less intervention and shrink government. But what happens is it's really shifting into the hands of the government, the public dollars, shifting into the hands of the corporations who then are planning this future of work.
Hey, we don't want to feed our children's brains into robots, thank you very much. Like whether that's the government's enabling it through the schools initially, or the companies who are going to use the AI to place people in these robot jobs, like that's not a future that any of us, like I would assume most parents would agree to.
To create value for a company, that it was this particular company. And so I would think many of the families who might jump at the fact of this giving their child an edge do not realize the extent to which these devices are actually sucking data out and like limiting their children's choices. Said, your metadata will follow you from your earliest childhood in its alignment with the government's interest, and it will decide who's a good actor, who's worthy of dealing with, and who has the right to have a job. That thing, if we understand this promise, what is the promise of empire? The promise of empire is we're going to mine the crap out of you. And like now these kids are that.
But schools say it wasn't hard for them getting parental consent to enroll kids into what is one of the world's largest experiments in AI education. A program that's supposed to boost students' grades while also feeding powerful algorithms.
为了就是国家的这个研究呀、发展呀，我觉得是没有问题的。
The government has poured billions of dollars into the project, bringing together tech giants, startups, and schools.
Because the AI is always going to be outpacing human learning.
So that's when you hear the term lifelong learning, it's not what the teachers really mean. It's what this future that they're trying to impose on us means. So it's like you have to keep moving through this simulation, through your learning and your earning, right?
Right. Yeah, and so this image is from Learning is Earning from Institute for the Future from 2016, I think. And this young woman is saying, like, so she is I'm assuming she's supposed to be in high school, and they send her protein folding puzzles, and she's so good at doing these online protein folding puzzles as citizen science that she gets paid and she gets credit for school, and now she imagines that she's a scientist because she's doing these gamified puzzle folding things. Now, is that the future that we want, where there's custom puzzles delivered to children that they perform online for money and credit, and then they imagine themselves as being trained? I mean, I think that's giving her false hope, in terms of what her conditioning is. That's not real education, and it's very isolating.
It is very isolating. I think that is what I've realized is in looking at my own children, and I know yours, is do we want this kind of future for them? I love to be able to use the technology. Of course, we would be hypocritical to say that we're anti-technology. We're not, but that's a very different, it's a very different use that you and I would think to use it for than what's being built around us with this push for the twinning, your virtual self, your physical self, and those two somehow being tracked and entered into this system that most people don't even know that is being built around us.
And AI, well, it's already in so much of the things that we do that we don't even really realize that it's there. But as industry demands more and more efficiencies,
possibly this was all set up by design, if not a logical conclusion to progressivism in general. And at this point, all seems very rational. A broken system designed to fail, broken families and working parents not available to consider education at all. Just so over time, it all can be automated, pushing society deeper into the centralized grips of industrial capture and instrumentalism. It is in many ways an evolutionary step in administrative progress, the exploitative system of the past computerized. Fascinating.
Department of Government Efficiency.
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 Be more efficient. It should be outcomes based.
Let's remember the E in Doge is efficiency.
We deserve good government.
This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Sure, and be on the lookout for flying pigs.
Musk's abundance and freedom is Rockefeller's democracy and vocationalism. Musk's efficiency is no different from Rockefeller's efficiency. One is rooted in manufacturing and agrarian development, the other in STEM, tech-centered training and gamifications of children's little minds. It's all anti-human, anti-democratic, and pro-elitism. Posthumanist psychopathy. Musk is the new version of the legacy robber barons in a leather jacket and pants that do not fit properly. Another businessman turned celebrity like Trump. Musk is the new age progressive era engineer and progeny of the elitist reformers of the past. He is an industrial and ideological descendant. All of them billionaires pretending to reform society for the good of humanity whilst incrementally dismantling what it inherently means to be human and a society. His complaints about education, standardization, they are correct, but his solutions of automation and privatization will only result in similar problems, though with bigger consequences. But I am sure another technology to fix the damage caused by prior technologies will be adopted. We never learn, it seems. How can one be pro-human and pro-singularity at the same time? It is oxymoronic, yet the current state of things. But who can blame him? When you think yourself and everyone else is a biological computer, all you see is data. Built on campaigns and promises of liberty and democracy, hope and change, abundance and prosperity, America has presented new ways to fix old problems that never go away. New ways create new problems, and things only seem to get incrementally worse at the social level. Maybe this is because our state systems have always approached the social from an economic view instead of a human perspective. We appear to be more concerned with GDP and less concerned with human TLC. We are more concerned with making efficient machines than we are with bringing up good people. Yet regardless of the new tools, toys, and technologies they employ, we are suffering from a meaning and relating crisis that is only getting worse as the years pass by. It is as if the more technological access and control the powers that should not be have, the worse off the people are for it in the long run. Not those in power, the people, though I would say, spiritually, everyone is worse off, even those in power.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Family, religion, friendship. These are the three demons you must slay if you wish to succeed in business.
In an industrialist system built on efficiency and economic growth, democracy cannot function outside of contradictory mechanisms of control and force. The free are limited by their machines, and the brave are afraid of their consequences. The double bind, and Ouroboros eating at its tail. The more pervasive technologies we employ, the less free we actually are. The more codependent, anxious, and vulnerable we become, the opportunities for tech state exploitation increase. They capitalize on these opportunities swiftly and with little concern for the social consequences, technicism, and the economic view of life. This is the raw nature of the old and current model, and it is also being applied to education systems. This is not progress. This is the nothing. A never-ending hole of nothingness consumes our future before it happens. It isn't coming, it is here. It happened then, and it is happening now again, though at 6G speeds. This is not progress, this is annihilation. We have sunk deep within the progress trap. Ronald Wright describes this idea very well in his work, A Short History of Progress. Quote, "Our technological culture measures human progress by technology. The club is better than the fist, the arrow better than the club, the bullet better than the arrow. We came to this belief for empirical reasons, because it delivered." Or I would add, because it was efficient and worked. Classic and endearing American pragmatism and scientism has a great deal to do with why we are in the mess we are in. Just because something works or makes profit doesn't mean it is good. And when the good is a relative concept informed by industrial markets and subject to the chance of whoever happens to be in power, the good loses objective meaning and becomes a mere tool itself. Everything becomes a tool for problem solving, a weapon of utility within the never-ending battlefield of expansion and pseudo-competition. There is always another frontier to conquer, and there is always an improved myth for the people to follow. Wright said the arrow was better than the club, and the bullet better than the arrow. Musk would say the good is unknowable, and it is better to be efficient. It is more valuable to focus on intelligence, and the computer is better than the human brain.
Slowly but surely, or maybe not so slowly, AI will keep getting better. And the day will come when AI will do all the things that we can do. Not just some of them, but all of them. Anything which I can learn, anything which any one of you can learn, the AI could do as well. How do we know this, by the way? How can I be so sure? How can I be so sure of that? The reason is that all of us have a brain, and the brain is a biological computer. That's why. We have a brain, the brain is a biological computer. So why can't a digital computer, a digital brain do the same things? This is the one-sentence summary for why AI will be able to do all those things. Because we have a brain, and the brain is a biological computer.
Okay, going back to the AI situation, this is quite important. If you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. But even the benign situation, if you have if you have ultra-intelligent AI, we would be so far below them in intelligence that it would be like, a pet, basically.
Cat, that's what I was thinking.
Like a pet.
Cat, like a cat.
Like a cat.
Elon
like
the
a house
cat.
cat. Yeah,
right.
it would be like the house cat.
Right.
It's not the end of the world, just sort of pet. But that honestly, that would be the benign scenario. And
so house cat is okay.
I mean, I don't love the idea of being a house cat.
Okay.
So what's the solution? To have an AI layer. If you think of you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, a sort of a third layer above the cortex, that could work well and symbiotically with you. I mean, just as your cortex works symbiotically with your limbic system, your sort of a third digital layer could work symbiotically with the rest.
This is something that's surgically inserted or bred into the species, or what?
The fundamental limitation is input-output. So we're already a cyborg. I mean, you have a digital version of yourself or partial version of yourself online in the form of your emails and your social media and all the things that you do. And you have basically superpowers in that with your computer and your phone and the applications that are there. You have more power than the President of the United States had 20 years ago. We're already a cyborg.
This type of philosophy has a trajectory that subordinates the human and the good to a mythical objectivity, an exponential compute of artificial intelligence. This is the perfect example of a progress trap. We all have fallen into the myths popularized by Musk, who gleaned them from futurists before him, whether it be Illich's concept of social myths indoctrinated via schooling, or Musk's science fiction myths of space travel and human-AI symbiosis. Society has been taken by an abject myth of progress, a pseudo-form of the good and democracy that has been handed down to us by detached men of rank, sociopaths in tailor suits, and philosophically inept leadership. We have been, since the beginning, and are at this very moment, being sold a myth about who and what we are, why we are here, and where we should go. We are living someone else's dream, fulfilling someone else's great work, and trusting in someone else's futurist plan. Wright says, progress has become myth in an anthropological sense. By this, I do not mean a belief that is flimsy or untrue. Myth is an arrangement of the past, whether real or imagined, in patterns that reinforces a culture's deepest values and aspirations. Myths are so fraught with meaning that we live and die by them. They are the maps by which cultures navigated through time. As we were sold myths of freedom, equality, and progress by forefathering paternal governments and leadership thereafter, this very myth continues today, just as fraudulent and veiled as it was from the start. Today's myths tell us computation and automation is moving us forward, and forward is progress. And we have no choice in the matter anyway, according to Kevin Kelly, founder of Wired magazine. We are to all just accept a fate of ever-presence and live in a constant state of playing catch-up with the will of machines in a purgatory protopia. And hey, it's the best option we have. But actually, none of this has to happen. We do have a choice in the matter as common people. Yet technocrats carry on with their fantasy future. But what if none of this is actually good in an objective sense? Wright states, progress has an internal logic that can lead beyond reason to catastrophe. A seductive trail of successes may end in a trap. As cultures grow more elaborate and technologies more powerful, they themselves may become ponderous specializations, vulnerable, and in extreme cases, deadly.
I think we're headed to a radically different world. I think a good world, an interesting world. My prediction actually for humanoid robots is that ultimately there will be tens of billions. I think everyone will want to have their personal robot. You can think of it like as though you had your own personal C-3PO or R2-D2, but even better.
I think on the AI front, we are close to what you might call AGI or digital superintelligence. I think we are seeing an explosion in digital superintelligence here. And then we've got at Tesla, we'll be launching unsupervised autonomy, basically self-driving cars with no one in them in Austin next month. So it's a big year for sure.
When all you have is a hammer, everything you approach looks like a nail. Musk only has one legitimate strategy: automation. The same tool that has the potential to destroy centuries of human civilizational development and human essence, he is incorporating into every action towards social and economic reform. This is the new administrative progressive movement. Though there is nothing new under the sun, now is there? Sometimes it appears as if nothing he is doing politically is actually legitimate. Like most of this activity is kayfabe, political theater to keep us all wrapped up in a wave of false pretenses and nonsense, whilst tectonic change of massive proportions is occurring beneath at the industrial levels.
But there's always a small chance that AI will kill us all. Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
He is possibly our P.T. Barnum with a physics degree, a great showman and strategist. And if that is the case, what is truly happening beneath the surface? What is really going on? One thing I do know is that none of these characters are worthy of trust, though I am concerned that once more people figure this out, it will, by then, be far too late. Looks like we all will have to just wait and see. In the meantime, it would be wise for the public to collectively and critically assess what is happening and begin to build new forms of low-tech economy at the local levels. Though this is highly unlikely on any large scale, outside of our faith, it's the only formidable substrate that divides man from machine. Enslavement systems are being constructed all about us and within our very bodies. The only things standing between technocracy and posthumanity are regular persons not willing to accept the future bloody-handed billionaires have designed for them, and the preservation and eternal defense of the Imago Dei, man made in the image of God, not in the image of Biocorp or AI Inc. Guard your children, hearts, minds, and spirit, my friends. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Godspeed.
These days, technology makes it difficult, maybe even impossible, to tell what's real and what's not.
Listen to me, you little filthy punk. I don't think I made myself clear. I don't want your drugs. I don't want your money. I want your sorry ass out of my house and off my street.
Let's go, baby. You can do it. Come on, I believe in you. Have faith.
Out of my house and off my street.
faith.